All right, so this is all about being redeemed. So you can imagine as Naomi is waiting and pacing, it's like, how did this go? Did this go well? And then Ruth comes back with this blessing and blessing and blessing and blessing. And it just shows how she was at this place of thinking that God just gave up on her. God did not give up on her. Sometimes in the process of loss, we feel like God doesn't care. Sometimes in the valleys, even when we run from God and we do the wrong things and stuff like that, we just feel like it's over. And I put a lot in your notes. If you guys looked at it, you're probably thinking we are not leaving tonight. I promise you, we will not hit every one of these things. So let's review a little bit. Then Naomi, her mother-in-law, said unto her, My daughter, shall I not seek rest for thee, that it might be well with thee? She said, the rest literally means you cannot survive here. You need shelter. You need a husband. You need home. You need an income. And she was worried about her. And she says, and now Boaz, our kindred, with whose maiden thou was saying, when you came back and you told me it was Boaz, Boaz is our kinsman. We're related to him. She had a plan going on. And we talked about, have you ever tried to hook somebody up or connect somebody in that way? And she has this plan of this is a way that we could. But the problem is this. The problem is he is this guy from the children of Israel, and she is from the land of Moab. I mean, who would show compassion and love in this way would be total grace. Ruth had spent the entire season serving in the fields now. They're getting to the end of the harvest. And I'm sure from this time, if the first interaction that we read in the Bible was this demonstration of love and outpouring of compassion and all this stuff, you can imagine how that probably escalated. And I'm not trying to read between the lines or add to Scripture whatsoever, but would we all agree that Boaz probably had a little interest in Ruth at the beginning of this? I mean, we went through all these details of what happened and his kindness and him like just doting on her and loving on her in this way. There was something significant going on. And by the end of it, I'm not giving away the story, but they get married and they have a child, and God blesses that. So you can imagine during this season, Boaz probably had a spring in his step as he's going to the field and checking on the employees and seeing this and saying, make sure you leave a little extra for her today and taking care of her in this way. Let me go into some of the history. Deuteronomy 25, verse 5. If a brethren dwell together and one of them die and have no child, the wife of the dead shall not marry without unto a stranger. Her husband's brother shall go in unto her and take her unto him a wife and perform the duty of a husband, brother unto her. It's a matter of them trying to keep the bloodline going. And that was the whole point of a kinsman redeemer. It had to be somebody that could keep the bloodline going. And this was important during their days. Today, that doesn't matter, and it's much different in our culture today. But according to the law, he was responsible to carry on the family name by marrying a childless widow, which would have been Ruth. And it would have been significant. And now is Boaz our kindred, whose maidens thou was. Behold, the winnoweth barley tonight is in the threshing floor. So they get to the end of this. And this is weird in their culture. And we started getting into this, and then we stopped just because there's so much that happens. And this is the moment. This is the grand finale of what's been happening with this love story brewing and growing. And this is when they kind of come out with their feelings towards one another. But Naomi was like, this is the end of the season. So what's going to happen is he's going to be at the threshing floor. So you can imagine, in our culture, we do some weird things, okay? Can anybody give me an illustration of that? I've got a bunch in my head. So different cultures do different things. For us as Christmas, we're getting ready for Christmas. We hang socks on the wall and put gifts in it. Does anybody else not think that's that weird? We've just done it so long in our culture that you're just like, of course, they're stockings, whatever. But originally, somebody was like, I have a gift for you, but I want to wrap it up in a special way. They dig through the laundry, get a sock, and then tape it to the fireplace, whatever. You guys just admit that that's a little weird. Okay, how about the first people that was celebrating a birthday? And they decided, what should we do? Let's put candles in it and light it on fire. Now, I mean, for us, it's like, okay, that's just what we do for birthday. It's birthday cake, whatever. But you can imagine for other cultures to be like, what are you doing? You know what I'm saying? And I'm sure there's a lot of just different things that we do like that in our culture. Some of the things that we're about to study were just part of their culture. They meant something. They had significance. But the threshing floor was this area, and if you study back in history, look it up, and you can watch videos and stuff like this, they would have this area that was flat, and there was different ways that they would do it. But any kind of thing that you would do of taking the wheat and you would roll it in your hands, it would separate it from the husk, from the seed, or the part that you would cook with or bake with. And they had to do that in bulk quantities of that. And they would take these different sheets of wood and things like that, and they would tie it to a donkey, and they'd go in a circle, and it would just roll everything over, and then they would pick it up in the sheets, and they would throw it up in the air, and all the dust particles would blow away, and it would just fall down with the part that would be useful. And it was the threshing that they would call it. And so at the end of it, in order to have the harvest, they had to do this in bulk quantities. So you can imagine that the harvest was building up, and they had all of this wheat or grain and barley and all this stuff, and even it talks about the corn that was there, and they would have to protect it. Well, how do you protect something like that? It's not like they could build a fence around it. It's not like they could have guard dogs or whatever. I mean, they were very limited. So what would you do? You would sleep by it. Somebody was like, one of us is going to have to take turns, and we would rotate through it. Well, Boaz wasn't just a dictator. He was one, hey guys, I'll lead by example. On certain nights, he would sleep down there, and he would lay next to it. Now, you can imagine how dark it would get. What would be the reason that they would not start a fire? What would be the reason for that? You would lose everything. You can imagine the one guy's like, I got an idea. Was there? They would do that. So even you can imagine how dark it would get. So this is Naomi's plan. She's like telling Ruth, Boaz is going to be, this is going to be his turn. He's going to be down there. This is what I want you to do. Wash thyself therefore and anoint thee and put thy raiment upon thee and get thee down to the floor. But make not thyself known unto the man until he shall have done eating and drinking. So she's literally like, present yourself or appeal to him, wash, put on perfume, dress nicely. And you can imagine that this was a picture of Christ, how we represent ourselves before Christ. And I'm not going to go through all this. I just think this is cool just because the whole Boaz Ruth story is our story. Okay, there's so much depth to this. There's so much application to this. And I'm going to close out the lesson not talking about Ruth and Boaz. I want to close the story out by talking about us. Who is our Redeemer? Jesus Christ. That is the point of this story. It wasn't just a cool love story in history. It was a matter of God illustrating from the Old Testament our story that we find in the New Testament. But we are washed clean. We're anointed. We are clothed in the righteousness of God. Put on righteousness. And all these verses have so much application. There's so many parallels to this. There's so many visuals to this. But this is an odd part of their culture. She was like, okay, we're going to wait for the right time, and strategically you're going to go down there and present yourself to him. And it shall be, when he lieth down, that thou shalt mark the place where he shall lie, and thou shalt go in. Okay, I know this is weird. And uncover his feet, and lay thee down, and he will tell thee what thou shalt do. Now, in their culture, this was kind of represented a point of surrender, or presenting herself as a servant. And we have other examples in Scripture of them doing things in their culture, like when Jesus washed the disciples' feet. Can anybody tell me what the significance of Jesus washing the disciples' feet was? Does anybody know from history? It was not just the servant's job. It was the lowest servant's job. And that's why nobody else got up and did that during their time. You know, where all the disciples are sitting around, they weren't supposed to eat with the unwashed feet. It was just not right. And Jesus took off his outer robe and washed the disciples' feet. He took on the form of a servant. And it was just this, it was this symbolism. It had significance to it. The woman washing the feet of Jesus with her tears in her hair had significance to it. This had significance. It was a gesture. It was a visual. And she said unto her, all that thou sayest unto me, I will do this. Think about this. Ruth hears this message, and it gives hope. I mean, you think about putting yourself out there, a leap of faith, a leap of trust, of being rejected. And I'm sure for her, there was a lot of hope in this because she knew that Boaz was kind to her and all those other things. But to cross this line and present yourself as a possible person to marry in this way was significant. And she went down to the floor. She did according to all that her mother-in-law bade her. And when Boaz was eaten and drunk and his heart was merry, he went down to lie down at the end of the heap of the corn. She came softly and uncovered his feet and laid her down. I mean, you talk about being scary on both sides of this, because I'm telling you, if you're being awoken up in the middle of the night to somebody, what would you think in Boaz's situation? What would it be? It was somebody, a thief there. So you can imagine the risk, especially with there not being any kind of light going on. But this was the harvest season. I'm sure he was kind of in a good mood. And it came to pass at midnight that the man was afraid, and he turned to himself, and behold, a woman lay at his feet. You can imagine, I don't know the significance of the time of this, but it would have been a pretty significant length of time if you're going from sundown to the time of this. At some point, I don't know. I'm sure Ruth was like, is this guy ever going to wake up? I don't know if she was down there like pinching his leg or whatever. Trying to, how do I speed up this process? And but Ruth's request, and he said, who art thou? And she answered, I am Ruth, and thine handmaid. Spread therefore thy skirt over thine handmaid, and thou art my near kinsman. And you can imagine as she's making this request that there was significance to this as well. It was a matter of put me under your authority, or put me under your care, or protect me. It was a way of asking him to take him as his wife. It was a Jewish tradition. So in our day and age, we would never do anything like this. But again, let's go into another weird thing. It's like the engagement of something we would do today. How does the guy ask a woman to marry him today? It's like traditionally speaking. Get down on one knee. But God used this same visual with the children of Israel. Now when he passed by thee and looked upon thee, behold, thy time was the time of love, and spread thy skirt over thee and cover thy nakedness. It was the same thing. It was just this visual of this. And she responds that thou art my near kinsman. This is cool, guys. You can imagine the little things that go on in this. This leap of faith. And is he going to reject me? Is he going to throw me out? Is he going to take me on? And just all these different things. And he said, blessed thou of the Lord, my daughter, for thou hast showed more kindness in the latter end than at the beginning, inasmuch as thou hast followed not young men, whether poor or rich. Boaz was taken back. Now, there's probably a significant age gap in here, and so he's taken back by this. I don't know what it would have been, and people have speculated, but you can imagine this moment that Boaz is able to express his love for her the way that she's responding to that. It's just beautiful. You can imagine as he makes, and he's literally, that you've been kind to me. He's responded to that kindness of them. And he said, you didn't run after, and you showed your loyalty to me, to each other. But this is her in this moment of all. Ruth started to show and express her love to him, and they were both showing genuine love and respect to each other. But this is the spiritual application. Ruth starts in the field looking what she could gain, and then it turns into a relationship. You think about how many people follow after Jesus out of the blessing or the healing, and how many people end up at the church. If you guys have been in church for any length of time, there's people that will come in like, I'm looking for the blessings of God, or my family is sick, or whatever. And don't get me wrong, we should seek after God for those things. But it's not a matter of what we get out of it. It's a matter of falling into a relationship with Jesus Christ. It's not the works and the mechanics of it. It's a relationship. And it goes from her just following after him because of the handfuls on purpose to falling in love with him as a person. And he says, and now, my daughter, fear not. I will do to thee all that thou requirest, for all the city of my people doth know that thou art a virtuous woman. I'm going to stop right there. I don't even want to point this out. Can anybody tell me how awesome this is right here? Throw out ideas, throw out comments to me. I want to hear from you guys. Let me read it again. She's a Moabite woman, right? I mean, you talk about discussing in their eyes. We talked about the history, horrible past, horrible beginnings. For all the city of my people doth know that thou art a virtuous woman. What does that say?
They all accepted her.
They all accepted her, but think about what they're calling her. Virtuous woman. And you think about it, let me go all the way back to the beginning of this story. Remember when she said, where you go, I'll go. Your God will be my God. Your people will be my people. And she turned her back on the false gods to follow after this lifestyle that she didn't even know what to expect. You talk about the genuine life change that God gives us. And I'll tell you guys, I said this on Sunday, and we were talking about the righteousness of God. About that imputed righteousness or the fact that we are made righteous in Jesus Christ. We don't earn our salvation, right? We don't earn our salvation. You can never earn what Jesus Christ had to give his life for on the cross. But with that, it's a matter of understanding people have said, well, what about those people that go off and live their life and they don't care about doing right and they just live this wicked lifestyle and they don't care about doing the right things. Wouldn't they be losing their salvation, or what? How do you call that out? Let me tell you, when you truly get saved and Jesus Christ lives inside of your life, you love and serve him because you love him, not because you have to. There is a significant change that happens in your life. There's the presence of God. There's the presence of conviction. There's a relationship that grows. I don't do what's right because I'm forced to. I do it because I get to, because I love him as my Lord and Savior. And if you have somebody that can live in the world and not have any convictions about doing something wrong, and you have to drag them into church, that's a heart issue. That's what we were talking about on Sunday. You can see with Ruth and Naomi's story that Ruth had a genuine life change, and you could see it. The Bible says you will know them by their fruits. You could see the life change in her, and it's powerful. The big surprise. This is cool. Now, I want to see if you guys can pick up why this is so cool. And now it is true that I am thy near kinsman. Howbeit, there is a kinsman nearer than I. Okay, just pause. I just want to see if anybody picks up on this. Does anybody know why that point of this story is so cool? You can imagine as this is like a really exciting moment for both of them. He's like, she likes me and I like her, and they're making this verbal in this moment. But then he comes out with this statement and says, actually, I can't do it because there's somebody else in line. And he's nearer of a kinsman than I am. What is the significance of that? Who can tell me? He already knew. You think about it. He in all that time, he was probably thinking, I would love to be her kinsman redeemer. I would love to marry that beautiful woman. I would love to be her husband. But she would probably never want me. And they're both thinking this. So somewhere along the lines, he was like, I'm going to go ask, and I'm going to go figure this out. But he did the research to find out. And I just think it's the little details of this. And it says, tarry this night, and it shall be in the morning, that if he will perform unto thee the part of a kinsman, well, let him do the kinsman part. But if he will not do the part of the kinsman to thee, then will I do the part of the kinsman to thee. As the Lord liveth, lie down until morning. He made her a promise. And you can imagine, it wasn't a futuristic thing. He was like, as soon as it's daylight, I'm going to go and make this thing happen. You can just see the love and excitement. Can you imagine what's going on in Ruth's heart? Because now there's a chance that she could be redeemed or in a relationship with a guy that she doesn't even know. And you talk about how she had these feelings for Boaz, and Boaz had these feelings for her. And I'm sure they both had, I doubt if they slept. I doubt if there was any sleep going on. I'm sure their hearts were just tore to pieces in so many ways. She laid at his feet until morning. She rose up before one could know another, and because it was still dark. And he said, let it not be known that a woman came into the floor. So here's the thing that's going on. And I think for the sake of their testimony, I think there's a lesson within the lesson here. It says, okay, now this is going on. I want you to leave before it gets... Now, nothing shady is going on, just for the record of this. That's not what this is happening in this story, before anybody has any ideas. It was a matter of, in the morning, sent her away so that it didn't look like something shady went on. And I think it's important because both of them called her a virtuous woman, and he was a man after God. They were both these illustrations of godliness, and they didn't want to ruin their testimony. I think it's important for us to learn characteristics like this, that we should protect our testimony. We should protect our image when it comes to this. And I put the verse in here. The Bible doesn't say abstain from evil. What does the Bible say? Abstain from what? All the appearance of evil. And I think it's important for us to shine as visuals of light, for us to protect our testimonies. I try to go out of my way to protect my pastoral image of making sure that I set an example. I don't just drive around with other women in my car. I'm cautious of being in a restaurant. If somebody comes over and says, you should sit down with me, if it's a woman, I'm not going to do it. I want to make sure that if somebody sees me, that I don't give the wrong appearance of this. And because I represent Jesus, I represent the gospel. And I think it's cool that it points us out. Also, he said, bring the veil that thou hast upon thee and hold it. And when she held it, he measured 6 measures of barley and laid it unto her, and she went into the city. This is cool too, because you talk about blessing upon blessing. As she gets ready to leave and she takes off her veil, and he goes over and loads her up with this barley and this blessing and sends her away. But I want you to see in a couple minutes that there was more significance than what we can see here. A lot of people believe that was symbolic. The Lord created everything in 6 days, and maybe the 6 was a number of man, or the 7 representing the work days that they had together. Not really sure. It might have been just what he could get his hands on and give to her as a gift. We don't know. When she came to her mother-in-law, she said, "Who art thou, my daughter?" And that wasn't a matter of like, who are you? It was a matter of saying, are you now the Mrs. Boaz, or is this going to happen? That's what she was saying. It was just a fun greeting. And she told her all that the man had done to her. And she said, these 6 measures of barley gave me he, for he said to me, go not empty until thy mother-in-law. So when he hooked her out with that barley, it wasn't just a matter of sending her home that she had her hands full of something. It was a matter of sending her home with a gift to the mother-in-law. I think there's significance of that too, because his connection to the family was through Naomi and expressing the fact that I care about your family. Do you understand what Boaz was taking on? He was taking on the responsibility of all of them. This went beyond just an infatuation with a young lady that he fell in love with. And he said, these 6 measures of barley gave me, and he said, go not empty unto the mother-in-law. It was a blessing. It was a gift. It was almost a gesture of, I'll take care of you. Then said she, sit still, my daughter, until thou know how matter will fall, for the man will not enter and rest until he has finished the thing this day. Have you ever had a lot going on that was on the line and your mind was just racing in every direction? You guys know what I'm talking about? And sometimes there's just things that are completely out of your control. There's nothing you can do except wait on the Lord. Is anybody good at that? It's the thing that we struggle with. Every single one of us is waiting on God. You pray, you work, you strive, you communicate, you do all the things that you do. And at some point, all you can do is sit and wait. And I can tell you some of the hardest days that I ever had in my life was the days that we would go get scans for Logan. And it was a matter of getting the scans, and then if anybody's waited on test results before, it is horrible. It is torture just waiting. But there's something that God does, is God sits us down to say that you've done all that you can. Let God do the rest. What do we call that? It's called faith. And the Bible says that we walk by faith and not by sight. It's not a matter of what you can see. It's not a matter of what you can figure out. It's a matter of you do what you can and leave the rest to God. And waiting is just hard. And Boaz is on this mission. And it was not just for the property that he was redeeming, but what it represented of the love of his wife. So just to give you guys some of the culture here, I think to understand, women could not retain the property in of itself. It had to stay in the family line. So that's the point of what's going on. They had to carry on the name, and nobody could just keep their property. So it wasn't just a matter of preserving their husband. It was a matter of preserving their future and their home. And God's established the way to preserve their property. And he said in Leviticus 25, verse 23 through 25, look at verse 25. If thy brother be waxen poor and have sold away some of his possessions, and if any of his kin come and redeem it, then shall he redeem that which his brother sold. So it was a matter of taking back what was lost. That is the whole point of being a redeemer. That's the whole point of us need to be redeemed, is restore what was lost, to take back or buy back, purchase back what was taken from us. Boaz meets the near kinsman redeemer at the city gates. Now in the Bible, the city gates was kind of like a place of business. It was kind of a gathering point. He went Boaz to the gate, and he sat him down there, and behold, the kinsman of whom Boaz spake came by, unto whom he said, Ho, such a one, turn aside, sit down here. And he turned aside and sat down. So this would be like the Bible's not giving a name. So it was like just so and so. And he calls this guy out, sits him down, and begins this transaction. And it was kind of a legal transaction of what was going on. And he took 10 men and the elders of the city and said, sit ye down here. And they sat down. And so you can imagine these witnesses and all this tension building up, and the men of the city sitting around, and everybody being on edge of what's going to happen. And he said unto the kinsman, Naomi, that which is come again out of the country Moab, sell a parcel of land which thy brother Elimelech's, which he was forced to give up when he left. And I thought to advertise thee, saying, buy it before the inhabitants and before the elders of my people. If thou wilt redeem it, redeem it. And if thou wilt not redeem it, then tell me, that I may know, for there is none to redeem it besides thee, and I am after thee. And he said, I will redeem it. Now you can imagine the heartbreak. You can imagine, have you ever been in a situation where you're thinking that you had it all worked out? I mean, Boaz is probably on the highlight of his life of thinking that I'm going to have a wife, I'm going to have a family, God's blessing me in this way, which probably was more exciting to him even than the great harvest that he had in the moment. And then everything just seemed to be falling apart. I know I've told you guys this story before, but let me tell you, this is one of those cool things. When we were looking for a house, we had all these dream things that we wanted to be put into our house. And we sat down with our realtor and we just spelled it out. I said, we would like to have a bedroom for each kid. And we also want an extra bedroom that we can turn into a schoolroom because we homeschooled. And I said, we would also like there to be a first floor laundry and all this other stuff. And she said, and what is your budget? And we told her, and she said, you're never going to get all this with your budget. She said, that's just not possible. She said, that's just not a thing. And I said, I know, but there's nothing wrong with trying to just put it out there and just see what God's going to do. Just never knew. And one of the things that our kids put in, we just told them, that's not really a thing, so we're not adding that to the list. But they wanted a laundry chute. I don't know why. They saw one in a house, that they wanted a laundry chute. So anyways, Jenny calls me up all ecstatic. She was just so excited. And she says, Tony, I found a house that is on Green Bay Court. Does anybody know why it's significant that she found a house that was on Green Bay Court? My wife is a hardcore, all of her life, Green Bay Packer fan. And as lovingly as possible, I told my wife, I said, we are not going to go bid on a house because it's got a cool address. She says, Tony, it's got four bedrooms. It's got 3 bathrooms. It's got a bonus room on the floor. She said it has everything that we wanted. And we were like so excited. It was a bank-owned house, so it had all these problems, but they were selling it cheap. Cheap is my love language. I don't know if I've ever told you guys that. And I was so excited about this house. So we went there and drove there and got this quick view of the house. And they said that we'll let you know. And then we drove off, called the realtor. We're sitting around the phone. We're so excited to see what happens. And they said, it's in contract. And we were so devastated. I was like, God, you gave us the exact house. It's on Green Bay Court. My wife's excited about it. All the pieces fell in place. And, just I'm not saying I was mad at God, but I was kind of like, why would you tease us like that? Have you ever been there? Why would you tease us like that? So we ended up, sitting on this for a long time. Months go by. I'm not kidding. Months go by. Jenny calls me up. I'm on Winchester Pike. I can tell you exactly where I was on Winchester Pike. I remember driving down there, and she says, guess what just was put back on the market? It was the house on Green Bay Court. And they ended up having to drop the price of it because there was all these issues that they kept falling on. And again, cheap is my love language. I thought God was taking care of me in that way. And we ended up getting it in God's timing, in God's way. All the pieces worked out. But at the beginning of it, it just felt like everything was falling apart. And I think sometimes in life, we feel like things are just falling apart. But there's the trying of your faith, the testing of your faith, the fact that God brings us through things just to show his goodness and his faithfulness, that God doesn't drop the ball. And Boaz drops this bomb on the situation. Now notice this. You talk about him probably over there like, Lord, give me the words to say. Lord, I don't want to miss out. I'm not going to go back to Ruth after I just pledged my life and told her I'm going to take care of this and that I love you and all this other stuff. Then said Boaz, what day thou buyest the field of the hand of Naomi, thou must buy also Ruth the Moabitess. You can imagine right there, she was like, what'd you say? It's like, wait a minute. I get all the property that used to be theirs, and I get to line up the whole heritage and all that stuff that I'm redeeming back. The wife of the dead to raise up the name of the dead upon his inheritance. Okay, which that is the law. We read it in Leviticus. That is the law. And especially mentioning that it's a Moabite woman. You can imagine, he's like, no go. This is, what do you mean? This is not what I'm in for. And the kinsman said, I cannot redeem it for myself, lest I mar my own inheritance. Redeem thou my right to thyself, for I cannot redeem it. So the question is, why did he change his mind? Okay, no, stop. What did he want in the first place? He wanted the land. For him, it was a business opportunity. It was a business investment. That's what it was. So, one, here are the possibilities. The man did not want to spend the money and buy the land and provide marriage, as well as care for a mother-in-law. Financial obligation. Maybe it endangered his own estate of the inheritance, that the man felt increasing obligation for another spouse would divide up his inheritance and he intended to pass on to his family. Maybe he wasn't wealthy enough to care for them. We don't know, or a combination of these ideas. But anyways, this is cool. Remember, we're talking about weird things from the culture. The one going down and laying at his feet, uncovering his feet to wake him up. Okay, that was weird. The other one saying, will you spread your skirt over me or whatever, saying that you accept me, that you'll take me into your care. That was a little weird. A lot of these things are weird. This is another one, okay? And I think we should bring some of these things back. Now, this was the manner in the former time of Israel concerning redeeming and concerning changing. For to confirm all things, a man plucked off his shoe and gave it to his neighbor, and this was the testimony in Israel. And I can tell you now, it probably wasn't like a Nike or anything special or expensive, but they literally was taking off their shoe and exchanging the shoe. It was a symbol of like a handshake. It was making it official, and it was probably a public transition of something publicly exchanged just to prove a point or to demonstrate the transaction was legal. Therefore the kinsman said unto Boaz, buy it for thee. So he drew off his shoe. And Boaz said unto the elders and unto the people, ye are witnesses this day that I have bought all of Elimelech's and all of Chilion's and Mahlon's of the hand of Naomi. He speaks up and he makes a bold announcement. What was his bold announcement? His bold announcement was not in the public thing saying that property is now mine. His bold announcement was like, I want the Moabite woman. I want her mother-in-law, and I'm going to redeem them for myself. Moreover, Ruth the Moabitess, the wife of Mahlon, have I purchased to be my wife, to raise up the name of the dead upon his inheritance, that the name of the dead shall not be cut off from among the brethren, and from the gate of this place ye are witnesses this day. What he did was just honorable. It was respectful. It was done to preserve the name. He was even honoring the deceased in this transaction of what he was doing. And the elders speak up, and all the people that were in the gate, that the elders said, we are witnesses. The Lord make the woman that is to come into thine house like Rachel and like Leah, which was the founders or the original of the children of Israel, and did build up the house of Israel that thou found worthy of Ephratah, the famous in Bethlehem. and let the house be the house of Pharez, of Tamar, bear of Judah, and the seed which the Lord shall give thee of this young woman. And they have these two comparisons of these blessed families and saying, may your family be blessed as well. So Boaz took Ruth, and she was his wife, and then he went unto her, and the Lord gave her conception, and she bare a son. Now this is huge, because if anything, this is the redemption story. And I want you guys to see this. It's not so much the fact that God just saved us. And don't get me wrong, that is huge and awesome and significant. But we're not just saved, we are blessed. We are brought into an inheritance of Jesus Christ. We are blessed with family in what we have right now of being part of a church family. You talk about, and I think the flashback is important for us to see this. If you look back at verse 1, and she came unto them and said, call me not Naomi, but call me Mara. She says in verse 21, I went out full, and the Lord had brought me home again. And she starts laying out all the things that she says, I lost my husband, I lost my kids, I lost my land, I lost my blessings, I lost it all. Verse 14, then the woman said unto Naomi, blessed be the Lord, which hath not left thee this day without a kinsman, that his name might be famous in Israel. God did not leave you. Amen. God is good and God is gracious. And now, if you take this story, all of this happened because they left the blessings of God. They left the house of bread. Everything fell apart, and she came back broken. But the story of the redemption story of Jesus Christ is God does not leave us that way. And that is not just the mercy of God of withholding punishment that is deserved. It is the grace of God that God pours out those handfuls on purpose to give you what you don't deserve. And I say this, let me make application to this. I'm saying for anybody that has lost their families to a mess of drugs and alcohol, I say this to anybody that's gone off and had the most horrendous affairs or multiple affairs. I say to this anybody that's been incarcerated and arrested, whatever. I'm saying it doesn't matter how disgusting or messed up the story is, that God is a restorer and he brings us back to what we don't deserve, but he is a good God and he is gracious. Notice this, the wording of this, verse 15, and he shall be unto thee a restorer of thy life. The word restorer means to bring back again what was lost. She lost her joy, God brought it back. She lost her hope, God brought it back. She lost her family, God gave her a family. She lost her home, God gave it back. She lost her chance of a future family and her name going forward, God brought it back. God blessed her with all of these things. And she shall be unto thee a restorer of life and a nourisher of thine old age. For thy daughter-in-law, which thy loveth thee, which is better to thee than 7 sons, hath borne him. So they have a son. And the word nourisher in this passage right here in verse 16, and Naomi took the child and laid it upon her bosom and became a nurse unto it. You talk about she became a caregiver. God blessed her with life. Now you can imagine at the beginning of it when she was talking to Ruth, she said, I'm never going to have kids again. She said, I don't know why. I have nothing to offer you. But God blessed her in this big way. The nurse, I think I put this in your notes. It's in my notes. To build up or support, to foster or parent, to bring up and establish. Naomi was now able to raise a family as a grandmother. She was able to be part of this incredible blessing in this way. And the women, her neighbors, gave her this name, saying, there is a son born in Naomi, and they called his name, what's the name, guys? Obed. And he is the father of Jesse, the father of David. You talk about how you say the story can't get better. Oh, it gets better. It gets so much better. Because who is Obed? Who can tell me who is Obed? The grandfather of David. The father. So you got Obed, you got Jesse, and then you've got David. And this is one of the only books of the Old Testament in this way that ends with the genealogies. You know why it does that? Because it's God almost like saying, is this grand finale, let me tell you the rest of the story, okay? This is what he's doing. And it goes from verse 18 to verse 21 or verse 22, all the genealogies of that. So I'm not going to go through that. I want to end with just the application. What is the whole point of this story? Because it is a beautiful love story. Don't get me wrong. And there's a lot of people that love to tell this story. And like I said, in weddings, a lot of this parts of rehearsed of it and how God gave this woman the second chance and Naomi and the relationship and the salvation story and all this stuff. But here's the story for us. What does this mean as part of the doctrine of salvation? 1 Peter 1:18, for as much as you know that you were not redeemed with corruptible things as silver and gold, for your vain conversation received by the traditions of your father. The word redeem literally means to go to market, to purchase, to redeem, or to buy back. We are the redeemed of Christ. Like I was saying, that this story of Boaz and Ruth is our story. It has specific meanings. We could just say that we're saved. We could say that we're changed, we're rescued, or all those other things. But this is a matter of understanding that grace came in to redeem us. Redemption is addressing our debt. Because the Bible says when we talk about salvation, that the wages of sin is death. We had a debt that we could not pay. Ruth and Naomi could not pay to redeem themselves. They had no money and no way of doing this. And redemption addresses his payment for our debt. Christ hath redeemed us from the curse of the law and made to be the curse for us. For it is written, cursed is every one that hangeth on the tree. Boaz stepped in out of love to redeem her. And the whole relationship was not about the money and possessions and exchange of the land. It was about a relationship. We were redeemed because of John 3:16. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son. Never lose sight of that you are redeemed and changed because God loves you that much. Even in spite of the illustration that we have of the Moabite woman, of how messed up she was, showing you how far the love of God will go. Redemption also addresses our relationship to Christ, that he more than paid for our debt, that we are the bride of Christ. We are redeemed for a relationship with God. And one day, Jesus Christ will return for his bride. We are the bride of Christ. And redemption explains our response to Christ. We are like Ruth and Naomi. We are restored. We've been given hope. We've been given new life. And we are blessed. Guys, never lose sight of that. That what we have is something that when we say, let's stand and worship God this morning, and it's on Sunday morning, we have something to sing about. In Revelation, it talks about our future, and they sung a new song saying, thou art worthy to take the book and open the seals thereof, because thou wast slain, and has redeemed us unto God by the blood, out of every kindred, every tongue, every people, and every nation. Ruth stood in awe of what God did, but we should too, because we are the redeemed of Jesus Christ. So never let that term be watered down when we talk about we are the redeemed of Christ, because that means literally that we had a price that we could never pay. And we were given grace in a way that was demonstrated out of the most incredible love story on the cross. And because of that, we have an inheritance and a life that is indescribable. And God is good.